Thank you, Mr. President.
Georgia.
Mr. President, H.Res. 88 is exactly the same as the resolution of disapproval that I introduced in the United States Senate. But it's already passed the House, so today if we can take a vote and pass it, we can send it to the President, hopefully for his signature or at least for him to express himself one way or another. The fiduciary rule, and I might add, fiduciary has 9 letters in the word fiduciary. There are 672 pages of definitions describing that one 9-letter word. This is a solution in search of a problem. It's bad for America, bad for our savers, and makes too big to fail even bigger in America today. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from 461 people of the United States of America who are opposed to this bill.
Without objection.
And I want to read one paragraph from the letter because it says better than anything I could say what's wrong with the fiduciary rule that's proposed by the Department of Labor. And I quote, "First, the final rule makes it harder to provide retirement plans to small businesses or any business that has less than $50 million in assets. The broadened definition of investment advice includes routine communications, where no intention to provide any individual investment advice exists. And it exempts anybody over $50 million in assets from being applied to the rule, which includes everybody under $50 million. You know, the President of the United States has said, as have so many of us on the floor of the Senate, it's time for us to end too big to fail. Since what happened in 2008 to our people and our economy, we know that businesses get so large, they get unwieldy, they get so strong, sometimes the little guy can be crushed. But here's a rule that's proposed to help the little guy, and what does it do? It exempts the big guy from being under the law if they got $50 million or more in assets. But if they have $50 million or less in assets, it opposes 672 pages of new definition of fiduciary rule. Again, it's a solution in search of a problem that does not exist. It also has a broad number of restrictions on IRA investment advice that an investment advisor can give to an IRA saver. And I know, and you know, Mr. President, that there are a lot of people around this town in Washington who want to end IRAs and put government savings account in charge of everybody. This may be a part of that motivation to drive a fiduciary rule that creates more government savings accounts, more government saving programs, and less individual decisions the individual can make. The rule singles out the IRA for these new regulations that did not previously apply to them. And for that reason, that's another reason why this is another problem. In fact, to tell you the honest truth, what this bill promotes is it promotes less advice or no advice at all to a small saver and free exemption from being under the law to a big company managing their savings. We need to get the American people saving money. We need to get them planning for their future. Mr. President, I would submit to you, let's think about something for a second. We have a safety net today in America. We have a safety net of housing. We have a safety net of food stamps. We have rent subsidies. We have SSI disability. We have all kinds of welfare and benefits for people who've fallen through the cracks. And every person that falls through the cracks deserves the help of this country. But every person that can save for their future, avoid becoming dependent on the government, is money in the bank for us, and it's money in the bank and freedom for them. To put more restrictions on a small saver, more restrictions on those who provide business to small savers, all we're doing is causing more people to go on the safety net of American government benefits and less people providing for themselves. If there was ever one reason and one reason alone that we should disapprove this resolution, it's this. Now, Secretary Perez proposed this in 2010. And dropped it because there was so much opposition. They came back with this new proposal in 2016. And they propounded the rule, and the rule is now before us in this 672 pages. But the Senate can take the initiative today to join the House in rescinding this rule and recalling this rule and not letting it go in effect. A vote to recall this rule and rescind this rule is a vote for small business, vote for freedom, vote for equity, and a vote for the American people. A vote to reinstate or keep this rule instated is a vote against the small guy and against the big corporate financial interest in Washington, in New York City. I don't think we want to do that. I think we want Americans saving for themselves, free Americans giving good advice to citizens who invest, and seeing to it that every American citizen is planning for their future. So I joined today the 672 folks that signed this letter to the Senate. I joined my 41 other colleagues in the Senate who joined me on sponsoring the Senate resolution. I joined the majority in the House of Representatives to say this rule goes too far. And I plead with each and every member of the Senate when they vote today to vote to rescind the fiduciary rule propounded by the Department of Labor. Let's send it to the President and let's send him a message. If in fact he wants to end too big to fail, then let's start passing laws that cause too big to fail not to get bigger, and instead empower small business, the American people, and the small saver. So I urge all my colleagues to vote yes in favor of the resolution of disapproval, and I would note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.